Welcome back. We are Gentlemen United, and you are in the Man Cave. Carnell Smith is a leading expert that won his own paternity fraud case after appealing to the U.S. Supreme Court. He's the national spokesperson on the paternity fraud, family law, and DNA testing issues. He's written model law and consulted on legislation in more than 10 states. Carnell has been featured as a guest expert on The Dr. Phil Show, Fox Business News, and the CBS Philly Show. He's been on ABC, CBS, NBC, and CNN News. He's been featured in Time, Men's Health, and Reason magazines, and on the ABC radio show with Michael Baisden, the NPR radio show with Tavis Smiley, and the Michael Smerconish radio show, among many other syndicated talk shows. He was also a guest speaker at the first International Conference on Men's Issues in 2014. I had the pleasure of meeting Carnell recently, and a one-hour chat turned into a 3-hour conversation. He is truly fascinating. Carnell also raised my awareness to Gabriel Cornejo's paternity fraud case in the news right now. Gabriel is a married father of 3 who's also raising 2 of his brother's children in Texas. A woman he dated 3 times 16 years ago, and the state of Texas are charging him with $65,000 in child support for a young lady who DNA tests prove, beyond a shadow of a doubt, is not related to him. The evidence, however, has no bearing on the court's ruling. Facing the threat of incarceration, Gabriel is fighting not only for his own freedom, but for the right to be able to provide for his wife and 5 children. Gabriel also joins us here tonight. And Carnell, join us tonight to educate us on what paternity fraud is, how it happens, who it affects, and what you should do to avoid it. Trigger warning. If talking about men's issues like paternity fraud offends you, I invite you to stop watching right now and go to the next YouTube clip. This may be too much for some people to handle. Okay, with that one out the way, let's go on. As always, for those watching this broadcast live on YouTube, feel free to add your comments, questions in the comment bar. I will watch for them throughout the show and will incorporate them into the show with time permitting. Joining me tonight are Carnell Smith, Gabriel Cornejo, and of course you, our viewers. I'm Sean Best, and I'm your host and moderator. Gentlemen, how are you?
Doing great in Atlanta.
Hey, having a great time here in Houston.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. All right, guys, I'm going to get into it because we have a lot of stuff to get through here, and I'm going to try to squeeze it into an hour. All right, so Carnell and Gabriel, first, thank you both for being here tonight. Now, before we get into it, Carnell, tell us a little bit about who Carnell Smith is and how you came to be a preeminent expert, on paternity fraud in the United States.
Well, Sean, when you say preeminent, that's probably the most unlucky soul on the planet, right next to Gabriel and a few others. It's not something we volunteered for. And it's definitely not something I would sign up for with the knowledge of how the trap works. But after supporting a very beautiful, intelligent little girl for 11 years, and my ex calls me and she says, my girlfriend told me you don't pay enough child support. Now, dig this. Her girlfriend told her that I didn't pay enough money. So I told her, if you think you get more money, take me to court. I'm like, I'm supporting everybody. I'm putting away money for college. And sure enough, she orders me to pay her nearly 40% of my net income for one person. I was on my way to becoming homeless, Sean. And little did I know that my pastor, my pastor's father, and my family, my sisters, all of them had an idea of a secret that I didn't know. They all suspected that I was not the father. My pastor's father talked me into taking a paternity test. And after getting that first test, the most horrific news that I have ever had, aside of having one of my younger brother and my older sister pass away, was I found out this beautiful little girl is not mine. And that the court said, truth doesn't matter. It's your fault you didn't find out sooner, and you're going to pay anyway. And I felt that was just not acceptable. And it looked like a trap. It's slavery in my view. And any man who is forced to either take care of his family or stay in the trap and go to jail, my attitude was, well, I'm going to expose it. And if you're going to lock me up, you got to do it in front of a television camera.
I've described paternity fraud as essentially the weaponization of family law used to drop anchor in a man's wallet. It's become it's essentially become a career choice, quote unquote, for women who simply don't want to work to earn a living and have themselves convinced that for some vague reason, they're entitled to having their lives financed by man while contributing nothing in return. I mean, this dooms some undeserving man to a lifetime of toil and debt under the constant threat of incarceration to finance their lifestyles. How far off am I?
Not very far off, but I will say this now. There are times that this is accidentally done. You know, she's not going to tell her husband that she has a boyfriend. So, you know, the boyfriend is really the father, and she doesn't have a legal requirement by family law to tell her husband about her boyfriend. So the two of them can plan together. We're going to make him pay for the kid. And what's even worse, from like friends of our group, fellow brothers in the struggle, we found out the biological father, he gets scammed too. And we've met a good friend like CJ Abernathy, man. He found out child from a woman he was dating, and turns out she's married. He gets a relationship with the child, pays child support, and then they decided, okay, we done got enough for your money, and decided to kick him out of the life of the child, and then use the marital presumption against him and say, well, he can't see his kid anymore because this is a child of the marriage. There are many horrific injustices here, Sean.
I mean, what kind of absence of conscience do you have to have? You basically have to be a sociopath, somebody who has no concept of having a conscience to do something like that to somebody, not only to that man, but to that child.
Yeah.
Well, in my case, the woman, in my case, she decided to be aggressive about the whole matter. I mean, I opened my heart to that family, to get to know them, to get to know who this girl is, to find out what the truth was behind it. They carry my children, my newborn in their hands. I mean, they were human beings carrying each other. And before you know it, she went to court saying, I don't care who it is, he's gonna pay anyways.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because somehow, somehow it makes the man responsible for her actions that night with a man when I was not even emotionally or physically involved in that transaction.
Now, in your estimation, your experience, why do men not talk about it? Does not talking about it hurt or help their cause?
Well, that's a very good question, Sean. And I can tell you, until you come across a couple of the alpha pack, like me, Gabriel, Thomas, Matt, CJ, and a whole litany of others that you'll get to meet, for a lot of guys, the pain is so unbearable that it's easier to just try to pretend that it doesn't exist, keep his head low, pay the money, and hope that if I don't mess with them, they'll leave me alone, until they come to him every 2 to 3 years and says, okay, it's time to pony up some more, and you better have our money. Don't make me come pimp slap you.
Right. And pimp slap you will involve the court pimp slapping you too, right?
Absolutely. That was the pimp slap.
That is the pimp slap. So, all right. So here's the thing. When you and I met a couple weeks ago, you shared some stories that I know many of us have heard or kind of heard about paternity fraud, but you gave me some stories where I think my jaw dropped for a minute. Yeah. So share the cupcake story with us if you don't mind.
A lot of people are willing to believe that men have, a man who's got a wife and he's got a side chick. Oh yeah, he's a cad, but they expect that, right? So there's this guy who I know is attorney, and from me providing DNA testing services at court, she approaches me and says, we got a unique situation. I got this client who thinks he has 2 kids with his side chick, who I'll call cupcake number 1. And he also has 2 kids with his wife, who I'll call cupcake number 2. Well, the girlfriend, she got tired of being the second chick. So she wanted him to divorce his wife so she could be the number 1 spot. And she demanded that he get a divorce right away. So she files child support on the guy when he refused to drop his wife, and demands a huge ransom for child support money. Well, guess what happens? This guy's wife, cupcake number 2, sees those child support papers come into his house and says, wait a minute. No, you need to get a DNA test on all of her kids. Well, the girlfriend, cupcake number 1, says, well, he needs to get a paternity test on all of the kids that he's got with his wife. And the lawyer that he has talks to me about it, and my idea is we he should test them all. Because if he's going to be in the court one time, let's make sure that the judge has all of the facts. I mean, nobody could be upset with the truth, can they? I mean, truth's a good thing, right? Well, so we do the test results, and both kids from cupcake number 1, 0.0%. He is not the father of any of those 2 kids. The kids from the wife, 0.0%. So out of the 4 kids, none of them are his. And this guy thought he was a player. Apparently, he didn't read the book. Cupcake wrote the book, both Cupcakes 1 and 2, and they both played him. And the only good thing that happened to him is he was able to get a divorce without having to pay alimony and support. So he was able to duck the paternity fraud trap only because he had a lawyer who was willing to intervene right away.
You know, I kind of equate that scenario to, you know, they were all playing a game. He was playing checkers. The 2 of them were playing chess, but they had him convinced they're playing checkers too. So when he said, well, king me, they said, king you, checkmate.
Exactly.
Right? He had no idea he was playing the wrong game. So, Carnell, real quickly, because we're going to go over to Gabriel in a minute. So how did you come to this movement, the paternity fraud? Like, what happened in your life that got you there, and what happened after that?
So with that news that I found out the child wasn't mine, I approached the ex and said, look, if you'll let my family and I keep a relationship with her, we'll still do things for her. We'll shop for her. We'll do all the things that we've done for her in the past. But I'm not willing to hand you $1,300 a month. That stops. Well, the mother says, well, if you're not willing to pay me, you can't see her. And I said, you sure about that? Because, son, Gabriel, there's no confusion on my part. I want out of this paternity fraud trap, and it has to stop. And I thought that since I now have 2 DNA tests to prove that's a pregnancy I didn't commit, that it would be over. Man, we get to the judge, and the judge says, well, it's my fault. I didn't know about the other boyfriend. And I'm like, what? So I appeal this to all of the appellate courts in my state. I go to the Georgia Supreme Court. And as I collect more data, as I do more of these publicity stories to get more people involved, I now have legislation started because I contacted a guy who got the legislation passed in Ohio. He shared some information with me. I got information from his lawmakers, and then I started duplicating his efforts. And guess what, Sean? The more I told the story, the more people said, me too. Their wives got involved. They thought about what was happening to their kids and how they couldn't buy and shop for their kids at home. And one lady talked about how she couldn't even buy shoes because she was sending money across town to somebody else's child. And like, why don't you make the biological father? Or better yet, why don't you let the biological relationship with this kid? So ultimately, here's the short story. We were able to get the law changed because my neighbor turns out to be a deacon at a particular church. And he was absolutely the right guy to get legislation introduced. Man, that is an awesome thing that God does. No surprises there with God, that he gets me to the right person who is in the right position. And then he starts telling the story about paternity fraud trap as if it happened to him. Sean, we got the law passed in Georgia in the House of Representatives at 163-0. In the Senate, 45-5. And I already had the governor's support. He told me, he says, well, there was nothing he could do unless legislation came across his desk. I told him I'll be back. And sure enough, he signed that law with the judge who originally ruled on my case. That judge came to the signing of the legislation and apologized. And he said, paternity fraud is wrong. And I'm sorry for what I did on your case. And he stuck his hand out to me, Sean, and I shook his hand.
Good for you. I mean, thank God for your taking that baton up and seeing it through to the end, and give him some credit for at least showing up and eating his crow sandwich.
Well, I think it maybe his conscience got to him, but ultimately, I believe since God can touch the heart of a king, he can touch the heart of a judge. And that judge finally saw what I was saying in court to him, is that this is wrong. And no person should have to come up with massive sums of money to get their family out of this trap. It's just wrong, and we have to stop it.
Right. And I think what people confuse is the concept that if something is legal, it is ethical. Just because something is legal doesn't make it ethical. Those two have nothing to do with each other, right? You can have something that is completely unethical and still be legal. And that is this scenario right here. So
Absolutely.
Now, how many men, in your understanding, fall victim to paternity fraud in the U.S. And worldwide? Because I know you've done a lot of traveling internationally on this particular topic. This isn't in the U.S. only. How many men fall victim to paternity fraud, and how does it impact society as a whole? Like, why should we care about this?
But what I can tell you is this, from the over 17 years plus of me being a DNA service provider, as well as me doing statistics and contacting multiple laboratories, approximately 1 out of 3 men who take the test and teen boys turn out to not be the father. So that means married men, military men, teenagers. So basically the way the law works today is the mother can file for paternity and child support with no proof. So her word is accepted, even if the facts later prove that she submitted under oath false information. And guess what? When we've asked moms this question that would talk to us, now, did you know that you had relationships with somebody else during the time of conception? And Cupcake says, yes. Well, why didn't you tell? You know what Cupcake has always said?
What?
She said that wasn't none of your business.
But the payments are.
Oh, don't get it confused now. The money is her business. And it's the trap's business. It's the court's business. It's the state's business. It's the child support enforcement. But they don't want to let us and our families go. You definitely need to have Gabriel weigh in on this.
Okay, so one more question, then I'm going to bring Gabriel in because I want to make certain we give Gabriel some open mic here. So now, in your understanding, Carnell, what are the origins of the laws that allow women to commit paternity fraud and perjure themselves, and why are they still in the books?
Well, there has to be a will to change. So a lot of the laws are based on the old common, the English common law. So you go back 1500, 1600, and the marital situation, the reason they say that any child born during the marriage are automatically the husband's kids is because unless that guy could prove that his equipment didn't work, wink, wink, nod, nod, or he was away on the high seas for more than 9 months, then generally the assumption was that, well, okay, we see her, we see a baby, and he couldn't have done it. But guess what? During that time, the mother and the children were chattel back then, which means they were property of the man. So there was never a problem with the child support side of it or the loss of property. It was the embarrassing factor for the man. So what he would do, literally, he would throw the mother and the kid out of his household, or if there was forgiveness and he was willing to extend that to her and she wanted it, then she might stay and both she and the kid. But here's my whole point is that we should not have laws that say it's okay to lie, cheat, and steal as long as you got a good reason. It doesn't matter what her reason was for doing it. And for the single situation, you know, with the non-marital, the way the law is right now, it is more geared toward protecting the trap so that once you get a guy in, we just essentially use a baby for bait. And anybody that we can put the name down on is him. And if he didn't figure it out, guess what Cupcake says? Your Honor, I tricked him fair and square, and it's his fault he didn't figure it out sooner.
Wow. And I know, Gabriel, we're going to get to your part of the story that has that component in it, because that part
has more than that component to it. It has more than that component to it. It has a level of evilness that most people can't comprehend in the United States. It has a level of deceit that most people in the United States will find criminal. But hey, somehow it's legal in our systems nowadays.
Thanks, first of all, for your patience. I know that took a bit of time. I wanted to really lay the foundation for people who aren't as aware of the nuances of this scenario and the broad reach that 33%, 1 in 3 men with children and teenagers are not they're not related. I mean, that number it's staggering. It's absolutely staggering. So, all right, now tell us a bit about your story, what you can tell. I know that your situation is currently in front of the courts and the judge right now. So I want to make sure we don't put you in a place that that puts you in jeopardy. But where you can, start at the beginning and help us understand how it led to where you are today, how it's hurting your family, and what your next steps or your planned next steps are.
My story is just a story of struggle. I mean, I'm the mother or the daughter of this case many times above national level discussion, because we all know they're on the wrong. I mean, my perspective here of things are not towards the mother, because I do question her motive. I do question her, but the one I'm really wanting is the state of Texas for allowing such attack in my family and such attack as me as a man, for allowing the admittance of a lie, of a fabricated lie in court, to become stronger than DNA evidence and to prosecute a man and find him guilty under those sentences. I mean, it's a clear racketeering from the state. It's a clear show of extortion by forcing me to go to jail. And all I can tell the state of Texas is that I'm not giving in. This trap was designed to hold people who don't have the capability to stand against it. And me being a warrior of God and a man that's trained by his family values, I refuse to be a part of it. I'm not a part of the trap. The trap would not have no hold on me. And if they do decide to throw me in jail, one will be a journey I'm willing to take, as long as I'm not willing to break my conviction, which is I'm not paying for a child that's not mine, period. It's a very tricky and complex machine how they do this. And it all starts with the service system. With the service papers, you would think that naturally they will ask you for your signature, correct?
Yes.
In the state of Texas and many other states, they don't require your signature. Why? Because they don't want the evidence that you were served. They don't care if you were served. They send it to any address. As long as it was the closest address to you, hey, they'll send it. And as long as that letter is received, doesn't matter by who, they're presumed that you've been served. So automatically, whether you know it or not. So time can
So what
go
you're
by.
saying to
In
me
my
that,
case, I was never served.
okay, so what you're basically saying to me, I want to make sure I get this right. You're saying to me that the court, state of Texas served papers to you at some address that was not your address. And as far as they were concerned, so long as we mailed it to 123 Sesame Street, whether you got it or not is entirely your problem. I don't care. Whether you even lived at the address or not is your problem.
What I do is they get a letter and they get a service and they send it to 111 Sesame Street. God knows. So as long as they have an address there and you're even close to the address, that's to them is a legal service. So when you come as a defendant in this case that I am and say, okay, please show me the signature where I received it. We don't have one. I was never served. Negative on the state of Texas, we don't require a signature. Oh, how convenient. So you can write checks without signing them from now on, because it's allowed in this state too. Because I want people to fully understand how this vicious trap works. I want people to have no questions or doubt about this machine that is designed to extort money out of families. Because it is a family being hurt, not just a man.
It's a whole family being hurt. Okay.
And I have a wife.
What is the incentive for the state of Texas to not care whether you receive that what's called service of process, and why would they not care? What is in it for them to have you pay money to somebody for reasons that you've not proven are legally not supported?
Because in doing so, they speed up the process of verifying parentage, which on the federal chapter 4, is that correct?
Yes, Gabriel. And
from the federal government, by the percentage of parentage being proven. Because if they fall short from their goal, guess what? No money for the judges, no money for the lawmakers, anybody who's involved in this machine. Destroy anybody's life. As a matter of fact, if you're listening right now and you're a male, they can destroy your life. And if you're listening right now, you're a female, it can also destroy your life. Anybody alive. This has no reach. This is not a discriminatory law which only triggers men, because guess what? Yes, it typically hurts men, but my wife is suffering, my kids are suffering, so it hurts anybody any audience, anytime. And if you think that, hey, you know what? I'm married, I have a perfect life, I have my kids, I go to church, I'm a God-fearing man, wife, this can never happen to me. You're wrong, because that person was me a year and a half ago.
Carnell, can you help us to understand some of the legal
Sure,
widgets that go on here that are creating this situation that Gabriel is living through right now?
Yes, certainly. Like we can expand on what Gabriel has said. Sean, so the reason that those who are in all of the U.S. states, not just Texas and the U.S. territories, is that these are part of the metrics that are required by the states in order to meet two things on an annual basis for the paternity establishment goals. And that's what Gabriel was talking about. Is one, they have to get more in than they did last year. Okay, so they have to show an increase. All right. And two,
wait a minute. You mean like a business that has to show quarterly increase to the shareholders like that?
That's correct.
Like year to year annual improvement. There are minimum standards that they have to meet, and it's all to make sure they get a slice of Title 4D bonus money, which is used to finance the child support enforcement in these states and those territories that have modeled themselves just like the way Texas has this trap operating quite efficiently in Gabriel's case. There's one more thing that Gabriel talked about. You know, he said a year plus ago that he would have thought he was literally untouchable by a situation like this, right? But they don't have to have your current address, and there's no man that I found on the planet is going to keep up with his address from 6 years ago and still have his mail forwarded to his house that he's at now. The rules for an incorrect default paternity judgment says they only have to send it to a last known address. Well, that doesn't help when you're not going to send them information about your current address when you don't know you're being sued.
Well, wouldn't they be able to? I mean, look, everybody files, federal and state taxes. When you file your taxes, it must have an address on your taxes. Do they not look at that data? Do they not look at that information and say, what?
But you misunderstand. The goal here is not to get the right guy to show up in court. It's to be able to say, hey, we sent the service, and Your Honor, since he didn't come, he must be the dad, and therefore it's his fault that he didn't come.
That's
so
insane.
Therefore, they rely on the system that is called the default system. And under the default system, you don't have to be the father. Just because you didn't go to court, because you were not notified, because you didn't know about it, it automatically makes you the father of a child.
There are a lot of men who are our age who are on dating sites like, Tinder and Match.com and Zeus and you name it, right? There's 1,000 of them out there. You go on a date, you meet somebody, like in Gabriel's case, you date them once, maybe twice, 3 times. So you're saying that even a person like me or someone who's dating like that on a dating website could be liable, could find out that mail's getting sent to an address they lived at 6 years ago, and could find themselves responsible for child support.
If you're a male and you're sexually involved with any woman, it can happen to you, period. Let me tell you something that is a misrepresentation of what's happened to me because of TV news and media. I dated 3 times. I couldn't trust her back then. I still don't. As a person, who am I trust with my life? You think as a man I will be responsible enough to in the hole with no protection? I'm sorry to say that. That's not the way it happened. Yeah, 0% of me being the father. She knew I was not the father. To be honest with you, I feel that most of these girls are coached by the state. Hey, either you hurry up and tell me a name or you get no services.
Guess what? And he's right.
Give me somebody. You gotta give me somebody.
Guess what?
If you don't give me somebody, you don't get no food stamps. You don't get no Medicaid.
That's right.
So give me somebody worth it. And
there's the hook. There's the hook. That's the hook.
There's the hook.
Gotcha.
And look, all we need is a first name and last name. Look, it doesn't say he has to be the dad. Because look, we're going to give the wrong address. So what's the chance he's going to show up and say, wait a minute, this is wrong. I'm not that dad. I demand a test. So we just make sure he doesn't come because we're not going to tell him.
This beautiful thing that the setup, the whole system is very well, because this service already sounds shady as can be. and the requirements to prove
Shady.
as shady as possible, because you just need a name. So hey, this girl knows protected, so she knows I wasn't the only one. Lie on the oath, because we'll give it to you. So that's super shady. So let's just finish the whole shadiness with the top of it, cherry on top. You got 2 years to find out, because if you don't find out in 2 years, you're screwed.
Wow.
By law. We gave you a chance.
See, right. So you basically go through your Rolodex, you look for a name. I think you remember this guy. I have his picture here. Okay, this is the guy. Here, Your Honor. Here's a first name and a last name. I don't have an address.
No.
Go figure it out.
But you know what kills me, though? What kills me is walking into a courtroom expecting justice and common sense from the United States. And yet this woman walks in parading with her husband, pretending to have every right to be demanded this money. They should be ashamed. They should be walking in jail for what they've done. But
how do you not have a conscience?
Right. They take the rights away from me and my family and give it to a pair of criminals. And that's why I'm standing up.
How do you look at yourself in the morning, that person in the mirror, look him in the eye and realize, I got no credibility, I haven't got a conscience, and I'm robbing somebody and their family? Like, how do you do that every day?
Easy.
I don't know. Maybe
they got a bully that can help them.
I asked the question the way I asked it before about the whole dating site thing for a reason. Because I wanted people who are sitting there saying, well, you know, Carnell and Gabriel, you know, they may have just didn't pick the right girl. They couldn't figure out that she's crazy or whatever. And I don't think they're getting the message that this can happen to any dude. This can happen to guys who've been married for 20 years.
Let me talk to the guys out there. No is not the player factor, and it's no is not the I lived the wrong life factor. And it's none of that. It's just plain and simple. If you are a male and had a relationship before yours now, if you had 10 relationships before now, guess what? It can come from the sky like a meteoroid without you even knowing. Just like that, boom, your life changed. If you tell me this never happened to you, guess what? I was in this side of the argument. Now, but before, I was on your side. I would say, poor bastard. That would never happen to me. I use condoms. Well, guys, what? I use all the condoms in the world, guys, and it's happening to me. Well, apparently, a daughter's being assigned to me. So figure that out.
Tell me what you feel comfortable talking about in terms of what the situation is for you now and what your plan is in the upcoming weeks.
Let me tell you what the situation is and what my plans is. My situation is extremely screwed up. That's what my situation is. And my plan is never to comply to a law as a human being and as a father. The state of Texas can go to hell with this law. I don't care less. They're ready to throw me in jail. Period. Period. That's the situation, and that's my plan. And if they want to acquire me, because you know what? In all honesty, I'm not just fighting because I want to be the one to fight. I'm fighting because it's morally wrong. I'm fighting because I see what is done to my wife. My wife does not deserve this. At one point, I even came home feeling guilty, thinking I was not good enough of a man, that I put my family through this. I'm not doing anything to my family. I shouldn't even be in court. So why am I bucking down to this state? Because that's what it's designed to do, to make you feel beat down and oppressed. So you won't fight back. Well, guess what? The state of Texas, I'm fighting back. And if they want to throw me in jail, I'll do it gladly. I'll walk in that jailhouse with my head up, knowing that millions support me.
Something that you said just now that resonated with me, and that was you were feeling shame. And what bothered me about that was you were feeling shame for nothing that you did. The whole situation is designed to lead you to a place where you're feeling shame for something that you didn't do. But that feeling of shame, I think, for a lot of men is, to your point, Carnell, earlier on, why men don't say anything. They just put their head down. They figure, listen, I'll just pay this woman. Maybe she'll go away, leave me alone, and I'll stay undercover.
Let me explain to all the men out there in the world. Hey, when we grow up as a man, I don't believe in one young person that grows up right by the side of God at the beginning. Hey, we all start life one way or the other being wrong. As we grow, we evolve to men. We realize that our actions were wrong. We reach out for God. We change our lives. We become better. So yes, you know what? I look back and I say, maybe I shouldn't have dated so many girls. Maybe I should have done something different. My poor wife doesn't deserve this. My kids are being, now I have to spend all this money on an attorney, and my kids are being without because of me. It's my fault. My wife may not express it to me every day. I could tell, you know, as a man, you feel this guilt. You feel this guilt towards you because when you reached out for the people that are supposed to help you, they pull the whip out and beat the hell out of you until it's your fault. You're guilty. It's your fault. You will pay. So if they couldn't help you, they didn't reach out and help you, then who can? Whose fault is it?
And Gabriel, you said something earlier on before we got in the show that also really resonated with me, and that was, okay, typically in scenarios like this, the last stop for justice is the court.
Yes.
They are the arbiter
Yes.
of all. At the end of the day, they make the call, and the expectation that we all have, men, women, children, everybody, is that the court will make a call with all the evidence that they have available to them and make the right call on the basis of the evidence and the laws in place. And what you're saying to me right now is, and what I heard you say was that, no, that's not what happens.
Justice. You wake up every day thinking that cop in the corner is out to get me. That cop over there is about to pull me over and throw me in jail. Everything is against you in this world. And you got to understand, it's not the world the way the world really is. Because when I've reached out for people through the media and the overwhelming support from everybody, which, by the way, I want to thank you all, it embraced me with love and understood that people do care. People do care about this issue. The ones that don't care is the state. So who am I counting on? I'm counting on we the people of the United States, not the justice system of the United States. I'm counting on the good Americans that can stand up and finish the Pledge of Allegiance and proudly proclaim one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, not just the ones they choose, but for all. And those are the ones we're reaching out for. Because I know that if I walk into a law system, I know exactly what to expect by their laws and by their mentality. The best benefit of the baby. This whole law is designed for the best question. I get it. Good for the child. I got three that I gotta take care, that I gotta give a future to. How is this for the best benefit of my children when I'm taking away from them to give to another that's not mine? And if I was asked to do so out of my heart, I 90% of the time would do it. And demanded by a woman that knew I had nothing to do with it, and her husband that won't get out his house and get work. I'm sorry, I can't comply. Out of love for my children, out of love for what I believe, and out of love to what my given right as a man is, which is to raise my children and give them a future, I can't comply by this law. And that tone of voice, I can tell a state of taste of. Jail me. I'll gladly go to jail as an innocent man.
You know,
you're going to have to jail someone who says you're injustice.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, when you think about this, the whole premise is, well, these laws in place to support the child. That's the argument everyone's going to go back to, because that's the easy answer to go back to. What about your children? Are these laws in place only for some children and not for other children? Do children have to qualify for these things, or is it for all children?
No. It's just for the children they preserve. And let me explain to you how it works. The machine is designed, because it's a money-making machine. The machine is designed to extort money from the federal government. Now, how to excuse this ridiculous law that come out, or even the biased ways they do? There are many men that are paying 3 times more than what it would take to take care of a kid. I've never heard. I have a family of 3, and I've never heard of one kid taking $1,500 a month. That's ridiculous. Never heard of that. I can take care of the whole house for $1,500. So now we have people being destroyed, and what do? How do this, excuse my language by saying this, cowards, because that's what they are. These cowards cover themselves. They put the label family or care or support, child support. Now by saying child support in front, it justifies their cruel intentions to destroy people's life. Ways, and it really translates to money coming to the government, filling up their pockets by government funding. Meaning numbers, that's what it is. They don't have a name. The person can leave the court tomorrow with a destroyed life, not knowing what to do with them. And they can go back the next day and they will not remember him only by a case number. Numbers 12574. Right. That's what they remember him. Do they remember his real name? No, they don't. Very unfortunate event here in Texas, which shouldn't have happened. A child lost his life because of cyberbullying. Horrible event. Shouldn't have happened. But I'm for it. I take my hat off to the Texas Senate for passing a law in record time. Cyberbullying to protect the children from dying. I get it. Excellent job, Texas Senate. Excellent job. Now I got the same question for Texas Senate. How many men have died from suicide? How many children are left fatherless because of your actions? And you don't mention them. How many wives are left without a husband and a funeral bill because of your actions? How about mentioning them? No, right? We can't mention them because if we do, we're directly hurting the money-making machine, the MMM,
Right.
which is the basis of all this.
Right.
The allowance to destroying and future and well-being. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of depressions I've gone to, but thank God I have a beautiful wife that supports me. And I believe in my Lord, and I believe that no matter how hard today is, tomorrow there will be a sun. Had I been weaker, I might not be here talking to you. Because that's how stressful it is.
And even to your point, I mean, and I've talked about this in previous shows of mine where I talk about men make up 4 out of 5 suicides. 80% of suicides are men. The other thing that you didn't mention, I think that also it's very logical to assume that this leads in this direction, is that 80% of the homeless are men. I mean, if you find yourself paying $1,500 a month for one child, and to your point, you can support a household with your wife and 3 kids on $1,500 a month. Yeah, and you're getting your wages garnished. It's not like if someone's saying, "Hey, can you please send me the money?" It's like you don't ever see it because it comes off of your paycheck before you get your paycheck, right? You can end up being homeless.
If you stop and look at the pretenses of the garnishment, that is direct extortion. Forced to garnish your money. I mean, that's extortion at its highest level. Because racketeering was used to convict you. So therefore, they really, I mean, if you really stop about it, does family court have constitutional jurisdiction over you? Can they violate your constitutional rights? How can they violate your due process and find you guilty and yet take your money without you even knowing? They can't do that. But yet they're allowed to because they keep us at state level. They keep us quiet. You know what? Carnell over there in Georgia, Gabriel over here in Texas, and we got Thomas in Oklahoma. Let's keep CJ away from Ohio. Let's keep them all away from each other. Let me give you a perfect example. How will you feel? And this to all the viewers out there. Put yourself in this situation, which a very smart friend of mine put it this way. All right. You walk into your house. Okay. You do the right thing, which is call the police. The police comes. They see the dead body. They see all the evidence around, all the DNA evidence in the ground. They collect all the evidence. They run the evidence test, and they realize it's not you. It's definitely somebody else. But since you called the police, you're responsible now. You're going in for murder. Where's the justice in it? The evidence says I'm not the murderer. But guess what? The police says you are not because you were in the area. You were in the area of the murder, and you called us, so therefore you are. But not only that, not only am I going to charge you for murder and you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. Better, we're going to contact the person who actually committed the murder, and we're going to make him sue you, and he's going to win, and we're going to give him money.
If you don't really understand this scenario, now you understand the parallel, and it's not an over-dramatization or hyperbole. That's a very fair parallel between those two scenarios. So Carnell, let me ask you a question. So can a man who has been the victim of paternity fraud and has been incarcerated get his record wiped clean by introducing DNA evidence after the fact? Or, I mean, is there any way for him to get his record wiped clean?
Not for child support. He can be classed as a 3rd-degree felon if he owes more than $2,501 in arrears, which now means he can't leave the U.S. He is probably going to lose his driver's license, business license, and all of these things now. And the sheer lunacy of this whole process is now you've already got him trapped as money-making property of the state. He's a hostage of the state. And now you're messing with his money. And once you get him classed as a felon, you just blew his employability.
So now he can't pay the money that you have now locked him into paying. So when you go to garnish his wages, there's no wages to garnish. Back to jail, it becomes a vicious cycle.
What wages?
Like there's no
we'll let him out. We'll let him out of jail when he pays the money he owes from the arrears.
And where's that going to come from?
Well, that's his fault.
And that being said, you're talking to an innocent man that can become a felon in August 28th. Just like that.
Just like, man, and look, and that's more than $2,500 for him.
And that's the reason why it's so hard to stand up to them, because the consequences. But you know what? To every man out there, to every married man out there, to every family out there, stand up for them. Just back me up. Back up our movement. Scream as loud as you can. This is wrong. I don't care what they can do to me, because they can't take away who I am. Family went through, and the struggle we've gone through with this, and as a man, the pain I've gone through, to have to explain this to my children and my wife. And I don't want anybody else on this planet to ever have to go through this again. I can't.
So, how many states, Carnell, as far as you know, have laws in place that would allow a man to prove, hey, I've got DNA evidence that says 0.000% likelihood that I'm this person's father, that will accept that evidence to say, you know what, we will not proceed with trying to garnish this man's wages or make him accountable for child support. How many states out of the 50 in the United States have laws in place that allow a man to defend himself from paternity fraud claims?
Well, Sean, that's a good question. Problem is, there's two answers to that, Sean. Let me give you the bad news first. Thanks to the Uniform Parentage Act that was passed by a board of commissioners of non-elected people, they, in their great wisdom, has persuaded a lot of the states to adopt a 2 to 5 year time limit. And that, if you can find out the facts within that time period, luckily, or maybe the mother feels guilty about it, or maybe the biological father comes up and says, man, I want to support my kid. And you find out a day before that time limit, you could turn it over. So all total, if you count the states that have this little rigged secret time limit, there's about 27. Problem is, Sean, there's only 2 that have an unlimited time limit, and that's Ohio and Georgia. And the reason I know that Georgia has that law is I helped write that law with my lawmakers, and Georgia is patterned after that. And our opponents will say that, well, if you change the law and make it unlimited, we'll lose money. And it's always coming up. They want to protect the revenue stream for the state, not the civil liberties for the people. And many people mess this up by trying to claim it's men versus women. No, it's right versus wrong. It's justice against injustice. It's human rights. And no man, his family, or teen boy should be enslaved as money-making property for the state.
So you're basically a walking ATM. It sounds almost like they've turned this, what's supposed to be now altruistic exercise of finding child support for a child into a profit center. They basically turned it into a profit center.
Yes. And they're good at it. Because look, there's 4 ways you can get into this trap. Earlier, you know, I know Gabriel says that if you're any woman that you've had relations with, but guess what? It's worse than that. You don't have to have any relations with the woman.
Oh.
Because using the default judgment technique, your name just has to get across the judge's desk.
So she could basically look up on Facebook and say, this guy looks like a pretty nice guy. His first name is A, his last name is B. Put that name down there.
Sean, I got guys who could prove they were sterile 10 years ago. Name got put down, and California came after this guy, and we got the video on it, okay? So that means he did not cause the pregnancy. He could not have caused the pregnancy, but did that stop the state from ripping off his checking account? Absolutely not. And guess what? He had to fight like the Dickens to get out of the trap. And then there's one more that you got to be aware of. All of you guys out there listening who think this, all Carnell and Gabriel and CJ and Thomas and a whole bunch of other guys, they're just unlucky. Well, Sean, there is mistaken identity. Because another guy named Sean Best could be the daddy. And they look at, wait a minute, let's see, the income of this Sean in Georgia is higher than the income of this Sean over here in poor neighborhood Tennessee. Hey, Sean, that Sean in near Atlanta, that's the daddy. And guess what? And you know when you'll figure it out, Sean? Right before your rent or mortgage check is clear, they hook up a hose to your checking account and drain that sucker dry. I forgot. And they also file an income deduction order, and they tell your employer they have to deduct this money from you, or else they will have to pay it, because it's all in the best interest of the children.
The children.
The children
I never had
got to be supported.
Jesus, this is insane. This is absolutely insane.
You don't have to
children
know the
you make
woman.
have to be supported. So guess what?
Yeah. Look, you don't even have to know the mother. Any name that comes across that desk. If Cupcake said you did it, doggone it. And it's our job now to get the money, because Cupcake can shake her fist at the judge. Look here, judge. He didn't figure it out in time. So you got one job here. According to the law, you're supposed to get my money. And guess what? Judge looks at the law, and what the law says, he didn't figure it out before the 2-year time limit. So I'm sorry, Mr. Guy. All right, I know you got kids at home and everything, but maybe you can get an extra job. Well, no, if you get an extra job, we're going to raise the child support. So maybe you might need to get a cash job.
Now, I know you said you're going to be doing a march soon. Is that correct?
I'm embarking in a 175-mile journey. It's going to take me 5 days to do. Average of 25 miles a day walking in the state of Texas, because I'm not expecting justice or anything happening with my kids. This is for every single person out there that has been affected by this, that doesn't have the courage to step up and do something about it, to reach for us. Reach for us. I'm not walking for the state of Texas. The state of Texas has given me everything they could give me. I'm working for you guys to prove to you how committed we are to this. I'm walking to give you faith and hope that this can be done. We will battle this, and nothing will get in our way. 175 miles, not 200 miles. Will stop me from doing what we must be done. Every single person affected by something like this. I know there's millions more, but it's hard to find.
So, Gabriel, where are you walking from and to? What are the two destination points?
I'm walking from the Family Law Building in Houston, Texas, to the State Capitol Senate in Austin, Texas.
Holy crap, it's going to be hot. So are other people walking with you?
Well, I have a friend of mine that's going to join me the first 50 miles of the journey. I don't expect everybody to stick up to a 175-mile journey. I mean, it'll be broken into parts. I will have rest, but I will continue. I will never jump on the vehicle at any time. And it will be fully cataloged and logged. As a matter of fact, you'll be able to go online and track my progress as I go. And if anybody wants to join me in this kind of journey, then you're welcome to come. Be prepared. You need to be prepared for high temperatures, 100+ degrees. You have to be ready for whatever the weather has to throw at us. But one thing I tell you, I find in every step I take by the person needing help out there, every step I take is not my physical body taking it. It is you taking that step for me, getting me forward. And that's what my fuel is. That's what my power is, to be able to accomplish this journey. And that I might give somebody the strength to get off, pick up the phone, contact Carnell, contact CJ, contact Thomas, contact me, join us on Facebook, Paternity Fraud USA. Listen to your problems like nobody else has. We understand what it is like to be secluded, hidden, and put away. We're here to put a stop, because the change is here, because the change is now.
I'm thinking that one of the things I think that would help is this conversation that just happened right here. Your story, your struggle, your fight for doing what's right. Carnell's information to educate us on the particulars of what leads to paternity fraud and how easily it can happen to anybody. I think the important thing is to help get your message out there is, if you're watching this YouTube clip and you know somebody who might be in that situation, even if you don't, just share this video. Share this video, say, hey, take a look at this. I don't know if you agree with it or not. I may not agree with it, but this guy's trying to do something that's right. He's trying to do the right thing. And if you can just get that word out so they can see this, what this gentleman's doing, you can find the links that you need to follow his march. Do it. It's not asking a lot. No one has to know that you did it. Just click and share it and subscribe. That would be, I think that would be plenty. That'd be very helpful. Now, So, Carnell, if you had to give advice to anyone watching on what to do to avoid getting wrapped up in a paternity fraud situation, or what to do if you fall victim to it, what would that advice be?
It's a couple of key points, Sean. Number one, do not sign paternity papers until you have DNA test results in your hand to be sure that the pregnancy you've been accused of, that you did cause it. Doesn't matter whether you're married, single, whether you tell me you were deployed, you do that. And whenever there is a lawsuit saying you being sued for child support, you must show up. Too many guys that do get the notice take it lightly and think that, oh man, they got the wrong guy, and then he doesn't show up. And if you are not the right guy, and sooner or later you're going to find out, because they're going to take your money or they'll wait a long time and then come after you and claim that, oh yeah, we sent it to your old address. Well, guess what? The day that you find out is the day you got to fight back. And don't buy into this misnomer where they says, well, the little kids look like you, and they use that emotional hook to bait the trap to get to your wallet, and then they claim it's so important for the best interest of the child that they won't even help you see the child that they're taking your money for. Last but not least, Sean,
let me show you.
A most important thing for those folks is, I'm an example of a person who, with the help from God, fought back and won. So it is possible to deconstruct this trap, turn it over by getting help, by going public. So Gabriel and his children and that little baby right there, they deserve to be free in this state, in this land where we say that for liberty, for truth, for justice, for all. It can't mean liberty and justice for just the woman who put his name down. Look, even her children deserve the truth. Even people like CJ Abernathy, who are the dads who were involved and in the relationship with their kid. We should be protecting every child's right to know the truth. Look, you can't just pick guys after you done had the baby. That would be like post-conception selection. Well, that should be put to an end. No judgment should stand until DNA has confirmed the facts.
And my thing is, anybody in the United States that think that I will not fight to the end to defend their future, then they're out of their mind. So if the state of Texas thinks I'm going to back down to fight for them, because I will have to completely give away their future to provide for someone else. It will completely change the dynamics of what I have planned for them. And then on top of that, what? Say hello. Say hi.
Hey.
Oh, oh.
Hello.
There you go. He likes himself on TV. So that being said, in the same note, to negate the right for my own kids to give to others, I can't.
No, you can't. It's an easy choice.
I can't. And Father, if I buckle down to this, I won't allow it. And if I allow it to continue, guess what? Literally kill myself. If this young man comes at me tomorrow and says, Dad, I'm paying for a child that's not mine. It ain't gonna happen.
Right.
Not on my watch. Well, this one tells me, Daddy, my husband is having to spend a lot of money. We can't take care of things around the house because he's all going to a lawyer because we're fighting an injustice. So to name him. I mean, the state of Texas is not dumb. DNA can get somebody who's charged with murder and in prison accelerated and out of prison in 24 hours. But yet, I can't get out of this trap. Get out of here, state of Texas. Wake up. This is an injustice, and you guys need to stop.
Whew, that one hit me for a minute there. I was glad the camera was on me for a minute there. I saw your kids, and I have kids, and that was hard to see. And you're doing it for all the right reasons, sir. All the right reasons.
Absolutely.
You know, when people talk about men having to do the right thing, and sometimes it's a hard thing to do, that man right there is doing the right thing, and it's a hard thing to do for his children, but he's doing what needs to be done for them.
And he's definitely focused on the best interest of the children.
That's right. So now you said before we start to wrap up here that guys should go and get DNA tests. Where can they go? Is it expensive to do? How do they get it done? How difficult is it to do?
So the good news is, since I'm going to be speaking as having been one who's provided DNA testing for more than 10 years, if you don't need to use the results for court, you can go to the CVS and Walgreens across the nation and buy a home testing kit and make sure that you personally do the sampling, and then you send it off to the lab and you get the results back. But if there's any chance that you might need to get visitation or legitimation parenting time if you turn out to be the dad, or you find out you were married to Cupcake, or your ex-girlfriend has pulled a scam on you and you need a legal test, the home test runs around $100, depending, give or take about $20 to $30. But the legal test can run from anywhere from $300 to $1,000, depending on how fast you want the results back. Guess what? For $1,000, you can get 1-day test results.
Wow. And it's well worth it. A lot more than 64.
Look, it's less than 18 to 21 years of paying pay $500 a month for 18 years. That's $108,000 principal. The test costs less.
By far. The test is a fraction of that. So, and the test, the way I understand it, Carnell, it's as simple as a swab of the inside of the mouth of the father and the child, and that's it.
So you'll do anywhere from 2 to 4 swabs inside of your mouth, and it's not collecting saliva, it's collecting the epithelial or cheek cells on the inside of your mouth. And as long as you're alive, you make millions of these every day. Okay? And they're going to compare the child's DNA up to match up against your DNA. And it's going to be one of two possibilities. If you are not an identical twin, if it doesn't match, it's going to be 0%. If 2 or more of those DNA markers don't match, you didn't cause that pregnancy. Now, if you are the dad, high probability is going to be 99.95 or higher.
Wow.
Another case that we leave him out because a lot of the guys I'm leaving out that I should bring in, which is a case like my friend Nicholas. Nicholas Hernandez. My friend Nicholas Hernandez, he grew up. He had his he had a couple of bad spots in his life. He ended up in prison. Okay. Hey, the fact that he was in prison doesn't mean anything at all because people pay his price. He paid his dues to society. He moved up with his life, right? Mm-hmm. So while he was in prison, the state presented him with papers that he had a pregnancy there. He requested a DNA test. So therefore, they're telling me we'll give him a date in court, which the state has custody of the man. They know he's got to go to court. They got to facilitate transportation to the court, right? Facilitate transportation to the court. They didn't give him his day in court. The state had his DNA sample because they took it. So they knew he could test it, and yet they allowed the system to take course. This man now is on the hook for child support. That child is not his. He's got 3 of his kids to take care of, and he's paying his woman for a child that he can prove is not his. But the state of California says his time is due. He didn't do it in due time.
That's the guy who went on the Judge Mathis show, and Judge Mathis gave him test results to prove he's not the dad.
And in spite of all that, he still has to go back to jail.
California says it's his fault that he didn't find out soon enough.
The man had no control on what he could do. You name one person in prison that can leave his cell when he wants to, go to the store, buy a drink, and come back whenever he wants to. You tell me one person that does that, and I'll say, you know what? You should have done something earlier. But the man was locked up. He had no ways to get out of prison. The state knew where he was at all times and didn't give him a day in court. Violated his due process. By all means, they did.
Absolutely.
And yet, the trap is not designed for justice. It's designed for profit.
Yes.
As long as we can squeeze every penny out of your pocket, we will make a law as ridiculous as being more powerful than the DNA proof.
Well, Sean, did you hear that? If they really wanted to let him know about the lawsuit, they already knew where he was. So what Gabriel just proved by this story is the trap is not geared toward informing men about the lawsuit. It's only geared to get them into the mouth of the beast. And once he's in the beast, one-way door closes behind him, and then it's okay. He is now officially money-making property of the state.
Basically a slave to the state.
Slave.
Which I refuse to do, and I will never be.
Absolutely.
I mean, to fully understand the trap, You know, being in it gives you a different perspective. And this is where I have to warn the viewers on this. Common sense tells you DNA test is proven, you're not the father, you're off the hook. Don't fall for that lie. Don't fall for that lie. Because they have laws in place that are more powerful than forensic evidence. Laws that are so ridiculous that a 2-year-old could tell you is wrong, but yet they live by it because ultimately the states are the ones to profit out of it.
Right. Okay, so Gabriel, listen, on behalf of myself and those watching who empathize with your family, I wish you the best of luck with your case. Is there anything else that you would like to promote, Gabriel, before we wrap up here?
Yes, I'd like to say thanks to a bunch of dads. It's a group online. This guy's giving me great support. If you're a father, they only allow fathers. I understand, but great group of guys. I mean, they've been great to me, showing me a lot of love with all my heart. And to everybody out there, if you can help, please help. And what I mean by help is when you go home tonight, have me in your prayers, please. Pray for me. Pray for my family. Pray for everybody affected by this. Pray for resolution. All this with hate. The world what it is, and we're here to combat it with love. And that's what we're here to ask the American people: love us. Please love us the same way we love you.
Amen. And again, for anybody who's watching this or watches it even live or after the fact, I will include links in the low bar so that you can follow Gabriel's march and anything else that's related to this case where if you want to become more informed, if you want to share this information, please share it far and wide. That is the way that we help to deal with the situation. Is you have to shine light on it for it to be dealt with. And Carnell made that very evident just a moment ago. Please keep us up to date on the outcome of your march and your case if you can. The Man Cave Show is a place where you can get your message out without having to worry about mainstream media ideologues twisting your message to suit their agendas. There's mainstream media news, there's fake news, and then there are the facts. We've just laid them out here.
Well, I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to communicate to the masses by telling our story and our perspective. And you know what I really would help, and I mean people could follow through with this, if you could give us a chance to introduce a very good friend of mine, C.J. Bernetti. I have it hard. $64,000 is a lot of money. Jail time is a lot of things, but this guy had it way harder than me. He has lost his child. He's not seen it for 4 years because of the same law that protects him and incriminates men. The same law took away his child. And another friend of mine, which is, he has put so much time, his own time and money into fighting a law to bring it to the Senate, and yet they turned it down. Why? Because of the same law, the way it's designed to exhaust you, to make you feel that it's better just to let it go and move on. It's not better to let it go. You guys are not alone. Every single one of you guys, I love y'all from the bottom of my heart. Every single victim out there, I need you to wake up and understand one thing. If you're alive and you're listening to this voice, survivor, and you need to gear up with us and fight this thing back because we need to win. We're gonna win.
And so, and the sites you can go to are paternityfraud.com and Paternity Fraud USA, that Facebook page, Paternity Fraud USA. If you are hearing this and you suspect that your situation might be resembling this situation and you're too embarrassed to say anything about it, no one's going to see you logging in to Paternity Fraud USA. Just go ahead and do it, and you'll find the support that you're looking for, even if it's just emotional support and some direction from some gentlemen who are also going through the same thing, just like Gabriel is going through it now. Carnell, is there anything that you'd like to plug as well before we wrap up here?
Absolutely. You know, the greatest help that I've gotten in working with getting the laws changed in the multiple states that we've been successful in working with my friends, Matt Minahan, who helped lead the effort in Oregon, Roger Hall, who led the effort in Delaware, a whole team of people in like Art Erickson in Wyoming, CJ Abernathy, and then I have a great friend, Diana Thompson, who is the founder of Women Against Paternity Fraud. She's been in this fight for legal reform for a good 5 to 10 years before I even knew anything about me being in the trap. Most of my help has come from women who are affected by paternity fraud, or they have a friend, a son, a grandson, a brother, a husband, and they will get involved. My experience has been they will get involved faster than the guy. And by helping that woman, she gets the guy motivated into believing he can get out. So I give a plug for Women Against Paternity Fraud. It's at WPF.org. I'm an advisor and a spokesperson for the group, because these ladies also have ladies who they were the woman who was married and had a child, but this one great lady named Alicia Thompson, she refused to put her husband on a child support. She wanted to make sure that the biological father would support the child, but that guy passed the buck using the same law that is preventing CJ Abernathy from being able to have a relationship with his daughter. Look, ultimately, don't try to exclude other people from helping. There are men, women, there are multiple races involved. As you can see by my tan that Gabriel and I, we are brothers, but we have different mothers. You get my meaning?
just a different kind of taste, that's all.
That's right.
But ultimately, look, truth should be an absolute defense for everything, because truth is an absolute defense in rape and murder cases, and more than 300 people who've been falsely convicted have been freed using DNA, and I've met several of them. But when it comes to fraud, if a mother or a woman or girl commits fraud against the government, there are criminal penalties for that. She'll have to make restitution, and in fact, she may go to jail for that. But if you commit this same level of fraud of $60,000, $100,000 or more against a guy or a teen boy, the state will help and say, look, long as we get our money, it's his fault. He didn't figure out the game first. We say that's wrong. It has to be changed. It can be changed. And I'm an example that God has helped with many others change it. So it's time for Texas and the rest of these states to get on board.
Amen. Thank you, Carnell. And by the way, for those who just heard that comment, his update about Diana Thompson, I'll actually have Diana Thompson on their show in a couple of weeks. We'll be talking about shared parenting. So I'm very much looking forward to talking to her.
Mr. Carnell, everybody out there. And I just love the way we are finally uniting. So if anybody in the Senate is listening, or anybody in the United States government is listening, you guys are in for a fight, because we're getting together.
Good. And let's all put in and make sure this happens. And Gabriel, thank you so much. Now, if you're watching this and you wish you could help, just share this YouTube show far and wide and help Gabriel and Carnell and Diana Thompson and all the others get the facts out there. It'll take 1 minute of your time, and you'll be helping to bring justice to millions of men and their families. Now that we've got the ground laid and people understand, there's no room for I don't understand in this conversation anymore. Let's show people what it's not an impossible task. It is not a task that is so insurmountable. There's no point even trying. Thomas is going to demonstrate to us next week. I know we spoke to Thomas before this, that it can be done if we support each other and we get support not just from men. There's women that are affected too. So it's not a men against women thing. It is truth against injustice. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us both tonight. If you enjoyed the show and want to see more, follow our Facebook page called The Man Cave by Gentlemen United. All of our shows, tons of additional content, and invitations to future shows are posted there. You can add to the conversation and suggest future topics you'd like to see us tackle. Please like, comment, share, and most of all, subscribe by clicking the Gentlemen United icon right here. It's free. Want to see more? Click here. Thanks again for joining Gentlemen United in the Man Cave.
Enjoyed the show? Like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for joining us in the Man Cave.